Some of the best villains in DC Comics are actually the ones that don't get the most amount of time in the spotlight, but rest assured they will absolutely pummel you in one way or another, and today I think we're going to talk about some of them. Starting us off today is a little guy who goes by the name Dr. Psycho. Now, Wonder Woman, being a warrior-bound Amazon, sometimes daughter of Zeus, is one tough lady, and as you'd expect, a good chunk of her opponents are equally, if not more, physically intimidating and pack one heck of a punch. And then there's Dr. Psycho. Dr. Psycho is not physically intimidating at all. He is 3'9" with no kind of super strength. But what Dr. Psycho lacks in physicality, he makes up for in being absolutely psychotic, but also one of the strongest telepaths on the planet. Psycho can match up to Martian Manhunter in terms of his telepathic prowess, and can control multiple different minds with his powers at the same time. On top of that, he is just so incredibly sadistic. When combined with that absolute power, he can cause a bad day for even someone as capable as Wonder Woman. And before we move on, I'm curious, who are your favorite underappreciated villains in not just comics but in any form of media? Let me know down in the comments below. But next up on the docket for today is Lord Deathman. The Japanese crime boss known as Lord Deathman has battled Batman both in American comics and in Japanese manga, using his powers to seemingly overcome death itself, able to rise from the grave no matter what his injuries are. In his first appearance in Batman 180 in May 1966, he passed away 3 times using a yogi technique to appear passed away before the final conflict, which saw him actually get struck by lightning and go on to the pearly gates. But since then, he has actually gained the real power to come back from the grave, but at the cost of having a bare-boned skull for a head. His regenerative abilities are so powerful that his fluids are used to create the infamous Lazarus pits that Ghul uses to stay young and immortal. One of the first ways Batman defeated Lord Deathman with his new powers is honestly a little out of character for the Crusader. He threw Lord Deathman off of a building into the path of an armored car, which took the criminal down just long enough for Catwoman to lock him in a safe, and then he was shot out into space, and he still somehow came back. Next up is Rogol Zaar. Rogol Zaar is basically an alien warlord who was actually created by the papa of Superman, Jor-El. Rogol was responsible for destroying Krypton along with Empress Gandello of the Trillium Collective. He went on to later invade the Fortress of Solitude, and he destroyed the shrunken Kryptonian city of Kandor. Now, following a series of battles with Superman and Supergirl, the pair were only able to come out on top when the Girl of Steel used a Phantom Zone projector to send Zaar to the Phantom Zone. Now, all of that is pretty impressive, but what really sold a lot of people on his actual raw power was later on, when Rogol escaped from the Phantom Zone, leading an army of criminals, including General Zod, who then turned on him. He did battle with Superman, Supergirl, General Zod, John Kent, and even Crypto the dog, all at the same time, until the Thanagarians showed up and put Zaar in permanent stasis. Clifford Smek was a participant in a government experiment which caused him to tap into the quantum field, which allowed him to then manipulate dark matter. Now, we have no idea what that really means because we don't even really know what dark matter is, but in DC Comics, the dark matter in Major Force's body allows him to do incredible things like absorb energy, fly, regenerate, and even create light constructs like a Green Lantern can. Another side effect of all this concentrated energy inside of him means that he will go off like a nuclear boom boom if he is cut. That on its own is a huge power boost, simply because now, as a result, most superheroes can't even risk fighting Major Force, just in case they cut him. But then, on top of that, even if he does go off, ripping apart his own body on an atomic level, the dark matter that he controls will just put Major Force back together again. And that's not even everything. Not only is Major Force a physical threat, but he is also, just to top it off, a psychological genius. Simply by talking to the Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, Major Force convinced the superhero to give up his own power ring, the source of his power, and one of the most dangerous things in the universe. Prometheus is going to be up next on our list today, and heroes and villains with no powers always seem to be some of the most powerful. It's kind of strange. Prometheus, after seeing his criminal parents pass away at the hands of the police, he vows a vendetta on any form of justice, a vendetta that would push him to be able to defeat the entire Justice League single-handedly. He shot the Martian Manhunter with a dart that turned his powers against him and set him on fire. He infected Steel's armor with a computer virus which commanded the suit to damage the Watchtower. He hypnotized the Huntress into unconsciousness, attacked Green Lantern with a neural chaff that rendered his ring useless. He trapped the angel Zariel in limbo, tricked the Flash into believing that he had planted motion-sensitive devices that would just go off if the Flash used his powers, and he defeated Batman in hand-to-hand combat, which is nuts. His origin is very similar to Batman's. After his parents were dispatched from the mortal plane, he would travel the globe training and becoming the ultimate combat machine. But he also attended all the top universities, learning as much as he could. He eventually set up a base in the Ghost Zone, and from here he built an armor that could download information on any opponent's fighting style, kind of reminiscent of Taskmaster's ability from Marvel Comics. He is kind of crazy capable, but his vendetta on any kind of justice, plus his Batman likeness, just kind of makes him a little weird to me. Next up, we got Tattooed Man. Abel Tarrant was a sailor who discovered a strange chemical that could bring drawings to life. Now, realizing the potential this chemical had, he inked his entire body with it and became the supervillain Tattooed Man. While performing crimes, his ink actually comes to life to attack his enemies. Over the years, he has fought superheroes with tattoos of tigers, cars, ships, monsters, bears, fire, planes, and dinosaurs. He can even use a tattoo of wings to give himself the ability to fly. Tattoo Man has never been considered a super serious threat, but I think he should be, because he is only limited by his imagination. There is nothing stopping him from creating a tattoo of a nuclear boom boom or even a black hole. If he inked kryptonite onto his body, there's no reason that he couldn't take down Superman if he wanted to. Next up today is Dr. Sivana. It's almost ironic that some of the biggest and the strongest superheroes find their adversaries in the form of kind of creepy, somewhat old, bald men. Superman has Lex Luthor, who isn't old, but he is bald. And then for Shazam, he's got Dr. Sivana, who is indeed both old and bald. Sivana is not the kind of guy who's going to be engaging in a battle of fisticuffs, but that's fine because his strength is in the brain department. The villain doesn't have a ton of monumental feats, but one of his best comes to us in the Multiversity Thunderworld adventures. In the opening pages of this comic, Sivana literally attacks the Rock of Eternity, which is the source of Shazam's powers and the home base for the wizard Shazam. This place has never ever been attacked for an eternity, and Sivana attacked it with a bigger Rock of Eternity, which is weird. He had his own Shazam-like team of superpowered children and his own multiversal duplicates helping him along. He manages to take the wizard Shazam prisoner and mine the rock for its own power, granting himself his own monstrous Shazam-like form, and it's crazy. Now, with a name like Psycho Pirate, it's easy to not take this villain too seriously, but Roger Hayden is quite the capable guy. Hayden wears a faceplate called the Medusa Mask, which can control the emotions of anyone nearby, and he staunchly believed that this was his ticket to riches and power. When heroes or the police try to stop his crime sprees, Psycho Pirate just uses his mask to overwhelm his opponents with shame, guilt, depression, or any other number of emotions. He can also make a person develop a phobia of anything he wants them to be afraid of. Like, in his debut issue, he made Dr. Fate, one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, develop Cidophobia, aka the fear of food. And then he attacked Fate with a pizza. That's amazing! Psycho Pirate has played a huge part in some of the biggest DC comics ever, including Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinite Crisis. If you needed more proof, Amanda Waller, the head of the Task Force X program, aka the Suicide Squad, has claimed that Psycho Pirate is one of the scariest beings in the universe, calling him, quote, a man who could make gods go mad, a man who could make the mad gods sane again. And in our second place today is Extant. Henry Hall, the brother of Donald Hall, aka Dove, started his comic book life as Hawk, being empowered alongside his brother by a Lord of Chaos and a Lord of Order who had fallen in love. Now, Henry represented chaos. Hawk and Dove together were vigilantes and were even part of the Teen Titans for a time. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, however, in a dystopian near future that was home to a time-traveling hero called Wave Rider, Henry had become an oppressive tyrant named Monarch who ended up going back in time and fighting the modern day heroes before he was wiped out by the Henry of the present day. I hope you can follow that because it was kind of hard for me to follow when I read it. Present day Henry then took up the Monarch title and mantle in the modern day, becoming a villain. Now eventually, Monarch stole the time powers from Wave Rider and then allied himself with Parallax, aka the corrupted Hal Jordan, and he took on the new villain name of Extant. While he was the front for Parallax's scheme to recreate the multiverse using alternate timelines, he tried to alter time to give himself an entire army of superheroes and found himself battling all the greatest members of the JSA. And Extant tore through them all like they were a joke, and he even used his temporal powers to age up the members of the JSA that he didn't just straight up send to the afterlife. And lastly today, I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from this universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his giant wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then, Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that he was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he's trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him or defeat him, they just trapped him. This all-powerful, mind-controlling 7-inch long worm.
At number 10, we have Talon and the Court of Owls. Now, what gives Talon power isn't his might as an individual villain, but the power he has over the Court of Owls, an organization that has posed a serious threat to Batman time and time again. But that doesn't mean that Talon hasn't done damage on Batman single-handedly either. One of the Talons, William Cobb, is actually responsible for killing members of the Wayne family and also for attempting to turn Dick Grayson evil. Once again, his level of brute force is not out of Batman's range, but having this type of influence on Batman's life, both on the streets of Gotham and in his personal life, at least has Talon squeezing onto the end of this list among the other powerful bad guys to come. Alright, at number 9 we have Mr. Freeze. Often dismissed as a campy and relatively harmless villain, Mr. Freeze brings more to the table than Arnold Schwarzenegger's goofy portrayal in Batman and Robin. Mr. Freeze's armor is actually known to be extremely durable, with its newest iteration being strong enough to deflect bullets and protect from explosions. And on top of that, of course, he's got his freeze gun. This unique weapon shoots a blast of ice cold energy that freezes everything in its path, often leaving its targets encased in a tomb of ice. He's also a scientific genius, having designed and built every piece of equipment he wears and every weapon he uses. So his capabilities for years to come may only get more and more dangerous to Batman as he innovates his armor and weaponry further. And time is on his side, considering his lifespan has increased since the day he started wearing his Sub-Zero suit. At number 8 we have Solomon Grundy. This villain may not strike you as posing a huge threat to Batman, but you might be surprised. Also known to be a villain to Superman, Solomon Grundy is actually known to have a strength level on par with the Man of Steel himself. So that alone is enough for this guy to make a list about sheer power. With many of Batman's villains being tricksters and glorified terrorists, Solomon Grundy's extreme power has him standing out from the crowd, no matter which way you look at it. And this villain has literally been dead before, so it's insinuated that he's pretty much invulnerable. And if Batman ever finds a way to take him out, it most likely won't be for good. And it surely isn't ever easy to do so either. At number 7 is Deathstroke. Slade Wilson, or Deathstroke, is an extremely powerful bad guy who is basically a genetically enhanced super soldier with super durability, speed, strength, everything. Super everything. He is also a skilled tactician and martial artist, making him extremely competent in battle. In the Identity Crisis storyline, Deathstroke is hired by Dr. Light to protect him from the Justice League, who are tracking him down for a horrible crime. When Deathstroke comes after the Justice League, he shows them just how powerful and strategic he can be and takes out all of them, including Batman, beating him up so badly that he doesn't really see another beating like this until nightfall. At number 6 is the Predator. Predator. This bad guy isn't from the Batman universe, nor is he from any comic book world originally. Predator started in the self-titled movie featuring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Weird how that's the second time Arnold has made an appearance on this list. Anyway, this villain is a very unique one, and he faces off against Batman in Batman vs. Predator, a comic book series in 1991. It's a pretty epic face-off that lasts 4 long issues, and there are some pretty epic moments. What ends up sealing the deal for Predator is when Batman equips a very powerful armor and uses all the gadgets available to him to take out the alien. But the final tool that does the trick ends up being a baseball bat. Yep, you heard right. Batman beats the hell out of Predator with a baseball bat, leaving the alien to finish himself off with his own sword. It's a pretty brutal defeat, but did we really expect Predator to win? At number 5, we have the Batman Who Laughs. This villain is a force that Batman only faces off against here and there, but when he does, it's never an easy fight. This is because the Batman Who Laughs is a disturbing combination between Batman and the Joker, giving him the smarts and fighting skill of Batman and the absolute insanity of the Joker. Luckily, in the fight I'm thinking of for this entry, Batman gets the best of this crazy villain and gives him an absolutely savage beatdown. But it never seems to be enough to wipe the smile off of this villain's face. So it's not the most satisfying win for Batman in any case. The Batman Who Laughs has the power of Dr. Manhattan, as well as the power of every crisis in the history of the world. Don't ask me how this happens, but when it does, the whole of reality shakes in response. At number 4, we have the White Martians. With the same power as Martian Manhunter, these extraterrestrials are nothing to be taken lightly. Much like other classic depictions of alien creatures, these guys have a proclivity for taking over other planets and enslaving races at will. So when they get together and form a team called the HyperClan, the Justice League only finds out about their plans after it's too late, and it's chaos. Basically, the Justice League gets totally overpowered and all the team members are captured, except for Batman. Yes, they think Batman is as good as dead, so they leave him on the battlefield to die alone. But can you guess whether or not that's what happens? Right, Batman comes back with a vengeance and carries out a stealthy mission to take out the Martians one by one and frees his team of heroes before it's too late. But it's a close one. At number 3, we have Ares, the god of war. In Dark Knight's Metal, there are a number of different incarnations of Batman, and all of them are extremely powerful in their own ways. But one that might stand out from the rest is basically Batman wearing the helmet of Ares. Ares, for those of you who don't know, is the god of war in ancient mythology. And just to show how supremely powerful Batman could be, writers decided to put him in a comic with Batman and have Batman face off against him and win. He does get help from Wonder Woman, and it's by no means an easy fight considering Ares is after all the god of frickin' war. But Batman ends up taking his helmet and becoming the new god of war in the process. This sort of turns him into a tyrant, but that's besides the point. Ares is definitely one of Batman's strongest villains he's ever fought. At number 2, we have Evil Superman from the Dark Knight storyline. This one we all know. The famed face-off between an evil incarnation of Superman and a well-armored Batman. This event, which eventually inspired the Zack Snyder film Batman vs. Superman, chronicles the epic war between the infinitely powerful Kryptonian alien Superman and the mortal Bruce Wayne. What makes this event so impactful and popular is that on paper, there's a huge discrepancy in power between these two. Anyone betting on the outcome of the fight would probably put their money on Superman. But what ends up taking place is entirely unexpected, with Batman taking the win over Superman at the end of the day. But it's fair to say this isn't easy by any means. It's Superman. He's only at number 2 because number 1 is nearly impossible to contend with. So last but certainly not least is Darkseid at number 1. During the Final Crisis event, Darkseid and his army invade Earth and take out a bunch of Earth's heroes. At first, this includes Batman, who's imprisoned quite easily by Darkseid and kept in his custody. And this is yet another huge mistake to leave Batman alive, because when Darkseid uses his anti-life equation on all of Earth, Batman is unaffected in Darkseid's custody. And he eventually finds a way to escape and hunts down Darkseid. Batman gets Darkseid good with a special god-killing bullet seriously injuring him and nearly killing him. But Darkseid comes back at him by sending him back in time. But once again, even though it really looks like it, Batman isn't actually killed. It's pretty impressive that a mortal superhero is able to do so much damage on a literal ancient god who is otherwise used to taking everything in his way. But will someone finally learn that banishing Batman isn't gonna do the trick? Somebody's gotta take him out. Not that I want that, but it would be for their own good. This list is an example.
In at 10, Catman. I mostly put this on the list because I wanted to joke about Fairly Odd Parents. Thomas Blake, once a wealthy socialite in Gotham City, became a skilled hunter of jungle cats, but squandered his fortune in pursuit of his obsession. Left with nothing, he turned to a life of crime. Considering becoming a vigilante like Batman, he chose a different path later on and became the costumed villain known as Catman. His criminal spree involved stealing cat-themed items and valuables, mirroring his affinity for the creatures he once hunted, and as Catman, he encountered Batman and Robin on multiple occasions, and they eventually figured out his identity, thanks to the intervention of Batwoman. In a desperate attempt to escape capture, Catman deployed a giant cat robot, but the dynamic duo stopped the plans and destroyed the machine. In a final confrontation, Catman was washed away by a river and presumed dead, his criminal career coming to an end. But, I mean, still, Adam West as Catman on Fairly Odd Parents definitely makes him street level. If a kids show can joke about it, then yeah, you're sad. In at 9, Prometheus. Prometheus, born to criminal parents, witnessed their violent demise at the hands of the police, which left them traumatized and turned their hair white from shock. Fueled by a desire for revenge against justice, he took an oath to eradicate all those who stood in his way. Concealing his true name, he became a formidable foe with a plan to wreak havoc on the world. After unleashing devastating devices across numerous cities, causing immense destruction and loss of lives, including Roy Harper's daughter Leanne, Prometheus offered a deal to the Justice League of America. He promised to reveal the device's locations and deactivate them in exchange for his freedom. Reluctantly, the JLA agreed to save innocent lives. However, upon return to his hideout, Prometheus encountered Green Arrow, who sought vengeance for Leanne's death. In a swift confrontation, the Green Arrow shot an arrow through Prometheus' head, putting an end to the man's reign of terror. But hey, then it started the whole Trial of Green Arrow storyline, which a lot of people hate. So yeah, that's why he's up higher on the list, because of him. In at 8, Court of Owls. They're a violent cabal who uses architecture and murder to wield political influence throughout the city. Their legend is only told through whispers and a nursery rhyme that bears their name. To carry out their interests, they employ a breed of highly trained assassins known as Talons, and the leaders of the organization appear to be humans wearing owl masks on their faces, because where else would you wear a mask? The rest of the court, on the other hand, are mutated and appear to be actually like human-owl hybrids. Their owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and their eating style seem to prove this, unless they're just very into roleplay, or maybe they're just owl bears, and D&D has been real in the DC universe for ages. The Court of Owls takes notice when billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne announces plans to rebuild and reshape Gotham City for the future, but is sentenced to death by the group and their assassin, the Talon. They attempt to kill him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March, but they don't, because, you know, he's Batman. They struggle to the top of Wayne Tower, and the Talon survives a fall from the top of it somehow, but Batman begins to investigate and uncovers their whole society and a secret headquarters and how they were established by the Alan Wayne Trust, and it's a whole thing that is just meant to make Batman connected to the corruption in the city. And at 7, Bronze Tiger. Bronze Tiger, also known as Ben Turner, is a master martial artist renowned worldwide for his combat skills. His journey began with Richard Dragon under the guise of O-Sensei, but he later fell victim to the League of Assassins' brainwashing, transforming him into one of its deadliest killers. Despite their programming, Ben eventually broke free from their control, choosing to embrace heroism instead. His childhood in an upper middle class black neighborhood took a dark turn when at age 10 he killed a burglar that was assaulting his parents. Struggling with anger and homicidal urges as all 10-year-olds do, he turns to martial arts, seeking discipline and control, but again, his anger persisted, leading him to, become a criminal. Recognizing the dangerous path that he was on, Ben embarked on a journey around the world seeking guidance, and he ends up becoming a hero, but he was a villain, and that's why I'm putting him on this list. Plus, Ben Turner in Arrow is pretty freaking dope, so yeah. And at 6, Huntress. Helena Bertinelli, also known as the Huntress, was once a rogue and vengeful vigilante seeking to destroy her father's criminal empire after he had her fiancé, Michael Stanton, killed. Her paths crossed with Oliver Queen, who intervened to save her from her father's deadly scheme, but realizing that Oliver's different approach to justice didn't really work for her, she left Starling. Later on, Helena returned with a vendetta against her father, who sought protection by cooperating with the authorities, but Oliver tried to stop her again, but she escaped. because he wouldn't kill her because he had boinked her. This is all from the TV show, by the way. A year later, she resurfaced when Team Arrow confronted her father again, leading to his ultimate demise, but she wasn't the one to do it, so she was upset about that, because you know, if you want your father to die and you aren't the one who does it, apparently that's a bad thing. In the ensuing chaos, she gets arrested and sent to prison, finally. In the comics, she's like a vigilante hero, but in the show, she was definitely a villain, so that's why I'm putting her on the list, alright? That's why it's the Arrow version. Halfway through, in at number 5, Condiment King, the best character in all of Batman the Animated Series. The Condiment King, created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series, is a villain who uses various condiments as his weapons, sometimes capable of causing anaphylactic shock. Yeah, that's right. He's generally used as comic relief within the series. He would make many condiment-based puns. For example, the big bad bat guy, I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later, how I relished this meeting. You, the dynamic Dark Knight, versus me, the conceptual Condiment King. Come on, Batman, let me see if you can cut the mustard. And we all know that I love bad jokes. The Condiment King is seemingly killed after being betrayed and bludgeoned by the Human Flame with his own ketchup and mustard guns at that in the miniseries finale Crisis Aftermath Run, which already shows how he can actually be deadly. But that's not taking into account any potential allergic reactions that he can trigger, like I said, anaphylactic shock, or blindness, okay? I mean, ketchup and mustard are very acidic and can cause some serious damage if left unchecked. Plus, like, what would you do if you had fries and he gives you mustard, okay? The only appropriate punishment for that is death. In at 4, Mr. Freeze. I put this on the list because I really wanted to make Freeze jokes, but yeah, it seemed a little cold. Mr. Freeze made his debut as Mr. Zero in Batman number 121 from 1959, and he was a gimmick character, but was later renamed and popularized as Mr. Freeze during the 1960s television series. However, it was Batman the Animated Series that truly revitalized the character and gave him a compelling origin. In the episode Heart of Ice, writer Paul Dini introduced Mr. Freeze's terminally ill wife Nora, cryogenically frozen to preserve her life. The tragic backstory explained his fixation on ice and turned his crime into crime to fund research for her cure. The complex and sympathetic portrayal resonated with fans, becoming the standard for the character in various media, including the comics. The episode's success was groundbreaking for a Saturday morning cartoon, shaping the tone of the entire series. The origin story became canon in the comics and remained the official backstory for Mr. Freeze in most Batman adaptations, and in the 1997 film Batman and Robin, Arnold Schwarzenegger portrayed him, incorporating elements of his origin with Dr. Victor Freeze, a brilliant cryonologist struggling to save his beloved wife. But yeah, we gotta love the puns. What killed the dinosaurs? A meteor! Instead of the Ice Age. If you get it, you get it. No one here's laughing, so I know that was a great joke. In at 3, Batman. While yes, Batman is a hero, and has been a hero in most iterations I should say, there are versions where the Bats is a bad guy and those are absolutely terrifying, okay? Satan Batman from Batman in Bethlehem, Vampire Batman from Red Rain, Batman the Merciless from Earth -12, Red Death, and the most iconic, the Batman Who Laughs. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get killed in an alleyway, and then everything went sideways for this version of Batman when the Joker stirred a killing spree across Gotham. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that had turned him into what he was and wanted to take everyone with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, and the Ventriloquist. He also killed Commissioner Gordon, who accidentally sprung an acid trap in his notebook that melted his face off. And then after bombing a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents' death in front of him multiple times, Batman lost control and snapped his neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker exhaled a toxin that was contained within his heart, which infected anyone close to him if he had died, which in this case was Batman, causing him to snap and basically become the new Joker. We all know the story of the Batman Who Laughs, but yeah, that's enough to put him on this damn list. Okay, it's Batman but bad. That's terrifying. But ultimately, in number 2, Joker. The Joker has undergone many revisions since his 1940 debut. The most common interpretation of the character is that of a man who, while disguised as the criminal Red Hood, is pursued by Batman and falls into a vat of chemicals that bleaches his skin, colors his hair green, and then his lips red and drives him insane. I don't know how one vat of chemicals can bleach your skin, turn your hair green, and then your lips red, especially because your lips are your skin, but oh well. I guess that's just because he's crazy? The reasons why the Joker was disguised recognized as the Red Hood, and his identity before his transformation have changed over time. However, the lack of solid, consistent origins is the only part of what makes the character so mysterious. During the Darkseid War storyline, Batman uses Metron's Mobius chair to find out the Joker's real name, and the chair answers with quite the revelation. In the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, Batman informs Hal Jordan that the chair told him that they were 3 individual Jokers and not just one. The revelation is the basis for Batman the miniseries 3 Jokers, where it's revealed that there were 3 Jokers that were working in tandem, including the Criminal, which was a methodical mastermind based on the Golden Age Joker, the Clown, which was a goofy prankster based on the Silver Age Joker, and the Comedian, a psychopathic killer based on the modern one. So yeah, when there's 3 of you, you're kind of gonna be at the top of the list, okay? And that's also partially why people love him so much. And finally, in at number 1, Deathstroke. I know that you're all gonna be mad at me putting Deathstroke over the Joker, but hear me out, okay? Being introduced in the new Teen Titans number 2 from 1980 as Deathstroke the Terminator, Deathstroke is often seen as the arch-enemy of the Teen Titans. However, the character has also served as a villain for Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League, and is the main antagonist of Arrow Season 2. The show seems to have a more powerful version when talking about brute strength, since he has actually the Mirakuru within his system, which is a super soldier serum that was ironically found on the island that Oliver was stranded on and saved Slade's life. But after the Mirakuru is in his bloodstream, he develops serious anger issues, like even worse than me, and that's tied to his strength, and then he comes back into Starling City to get revenge on Oliver by killing everyone he loves and blah blah blah. But especially in the comics, Deathstroke is a terrifying character, like when he became a speedster in the Lazarus contract from 2017, in which Wally is captured by Slade and finds himself bound to a machine, forced to reveal his secrets as he runs. Unbeknownst to Wally though, Slade manipulated him using a verbal technique to extract confidential information, and then he offers him a solution. Assist him in altering the past to save his son, and in return he will abandon his life as Deathstroke. But he doesn't, and then Deathstroke basically takes the Speed Force, which is nuts.
And 10, Birthday Boy. Ray Salinger was a serial killer who operated in Gotham under the alias Birthday Boy, and he was actually the first costumed criminal encountered by Batman in his crime-fighting career. Introduced in Batman Earth 1 Volume 1 in June 2012, Birthday Boy is fascinated by young girls resembling his first kill. When in his killer mode, he wears a burlap sack with holes cut out for the eyes and a birthday party hat, usually in a room decorated like a birthday party. As a calling card, he left birthday candles where he stole away his victims and told his victims to make a wish that was decorated with the words "Happy Birthday Amanda," which is only creepier since we have Amanda here. And I feel like this guy is a representation of all of her DMs. That's right, I'm calling all of you nerds out. I think the sickest part of this character though was when he first started the whole Birthday Boy thing. He had been hired by Mayor Oswald Cobblepot to eliminate various enemies. In return, he was given girls from the streets or enemies of the Penguin as a reward. And at 9, Professor Pig. Professor Pig originally debuted in the alternate reality story of Batman number 666, which I love. He also debuted as a corpse, which I love even more. However, he was introduced as a recurring character in 2009 in Batman and Robin number 1. In Batman Reborn, Laszlo Valentine was an extreme circus mob boss until something turned him into Professor Pig, leading him to begin funding his scientific experiments by selling narcotics to the criminal underworld. All in all, he's an extremely disturbing villain, and that makes me think about why people aren't afraid of pigs as much as they are clowns, because if you ask me, this guy is freaking horrifying, okay? Professor Pig, if you couldn't tell, actually wears a pig mask, along with a butcher's apron, and what at times appears to be some form of hastily thrown together surgical outfit, like he got it from like Wish. Or he got it from like Party City. It's freaking weird. Also ends up brainwashing and controlling various people who he calls his Dolotrons. Like, I don't know what else there is to do other than just run away, so I'm gonna move on now. Although next time I have a pet pig in Minecraft, I know what I'm naming him. And at 8, Bootface. Okay, this guy's origin is the reason I wanted to talk about him. This guy's origin was simply him getting kicked in the face by Batman, and that's it, I'm not even kidding. Bootface was a thug working for Terminus. He got his name because of a boot imprint embedded into his face, which, like I said, is from Batman. Bootface first appeared in Batman and Robin Volume 2 number 10 from 2012, and honestly, it's one of the most interesting origins I've ever seen. And I mean this completely seriously. Everyone else has like a parent die, or was living in poverty, or was being abused. This dude just got kicked in the face and got so mad about it he became a supervillain. Even if he wasn't really like a good person beforehand, I mean, like, he was a thug and basically still is, but like still. Just this time, he has a ridiculous worst name to go with it, but hey, I still love it. And the man who is fueled by pure rage because he was permanently scarred by his attacker that ends up being a superhero, that's good enough for me. That's so funny. Bootface. And it's 7, Mirror Man. Lloyd Ventures is a criminal who was detained in Gotham State Penitentiary. Using broken mirror shards, he distracts the guards long enough to escape from prison. Inspired by mirrors, I guess somehow, he becomes Mirror Man. Upon creating a machine that would enable him to see through objects, Mirror Man began targeting Batman so that he could find out his secret identity. He literally discovers Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne by using a X-ray mirror, which is freaking nuts. Like, what even is that? How is that a thing? Mirror Man actually gets sent to prison before he can reveal the identity though, but because they want conflict, of course, he manages to escape with a plan to reveal Bruce's identity to the world, only foiled when Alfred, dressed as Batman, interrupts a press conference that Bruce Wayne was hosting, instantly disproving the fact that Batman is Bruce Wayne, because you saw them both in the same room. Even though that obviously Batman has partners. I don't know why people believe that. The public should have seen through this, okay? The people in Gotham City are dumber than we thought. I mean, they had Condiment King, so I guess they are dumb. Speaking of which, in its 6th, Condiment King. The Condiment King, created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series, is a villain who makes use of various condiments, sometimes capable of causing anaphylactic shock. And his weapons are literally like those squeeze tubes for like ketchup and mustard, just on guns. It's hilarious. He's generally used as comic relief within the series, but still. He would make many condiment-based puns. For example, the big bad bat guy, I knew you'd catch up to me sooner. How I relished this meeting. You, the dynamic Dark Knight, versus me, the conceptual Condiment King. Come, Batman, let's see if you can cut the mustard. The Condiment King is seemingly killed after being betrayed and bludgeoned by the Human Flame with his own ketchup and mustard guns in the miniseries Final Crisis Aftermath run, which is a comic book, which already shows how he can actually be deadly aside from the whole anaphylactic shock thing. And that's again not taking into account any potential allergic reactions that he can trigger or blindness. I mean, ketchup and mustard are very acidic and can cause some serious damage if left unchecked. It just goes right into the eyes, you know? Plus, what if you have fries and he gives you mustard, okay? The only appropriate punishment for that is death. Halfway through into number 5, Joker's daughter. Unfortunately, it's not the Joker's biological daughter. That would have been an interesting story. This is just the girl who finds Joker's face, stitches it onto hers, and then goes berserk. So honestly, it could very well be his biological daughter. The only person that I think would commit such an atrocious act is in fact the Joker, so who knows? While maybe not being as prolific or accomplished as the Joker, Joker's daughter is definitely insane enough for this list. Even if I'm pretty sure a lot of people know she exists and not many people underestimate her, but hey, look, even if one person underestimates her and they watch this video, boom, it's enough. It counts, okay? Not to mention the fact that she also went by Catgirl, Scarecrow, Riddler's daughter, Penguin's daughter, Card Queen, and Harley Quinn. Each incarnation also calling herself the respected super person's daughter, which I have to say is going to make a family reunion real awkward. But in actuality, she ended up being Dwella Dent, Two-Face's daughter, apparently, which is seemingly BS in my opinion, but we love a girl with a little flair, you know? And that flair will cause her to ruin Gotham City. In it for Clock King. Born William Talkman, Clock King spends his early years taking care of his invalid sister. One day he finds out from a doctor that he himself only has 6 months to live. Great. Despairing for his sister's future, he watches the timing of a local bank's vault in order to rob it, hoping that the money would provide for his sister after he was gone. His caper would have gone on successfully had he not tripped the silent alarm and been caught by the Green Arrow. The Clock King then goes on to join Major Disasters in Justice League, which becomes the Justice League Antarctica. This JLA includes G-Nort, who ends up saving the lives of the entire team. The original Clock King had no metahuman powers or abilities, although he is athletic and extraordinarily smart. He extensively uses clocks and time-related gimmicks to devastating effect. His primary weapon is a sword forged into the shape of a clock's hand that also doubles as a walking stick. And his skill in swordsmanship is such that even Batman himself could not defeat him in single combat. So watch out for Clock King. Getting close to the end of number 3, the Calculator. While the Calculator now seems to be an oracle of sorts for supervillains, the original purpose and MO of the Calculator is far more entertaining and interesting, at least to me. Noah Cutler began his criminal career by crossing the country and getting into fights with various superheroes on purpose, analyzing and recording their battle tactics to ensure that he couldn't be beaten again. Or in some incarnations, he would simply get beaten and then press a button on his chest to ensure that he didn't get beat again. Maybe that was taking in the information or something, like how how Iron Man would just say like analyze his fight patterns and then come up with countermeasures, you know? But either way, okay, do you know how insanely overpowered that could have been? Just being able to like press a button and then boom, you're instantly basically immune to Batman or Robin or even Superman. Like that would be absolutely amazing. You do this enough times, you could just do whatever you want. And like then other criminals like start paying you to do their crimes for them because you guarantee success. That's freaking nuts. Okay, I wish they kept that calculator. That could have been an even bigger threat than Darkseid if he kept going at it like that. This is why I'm the hero, because I would be unstoppable as a villain. Penultimately, in at number 2, Lex Joker. Lex Joker was created when John Dee, also known as Dr. Destiny, collapsed the DC universe in half. First appearing in Superman Batman number 60 in 2009, Lex Joker is the combination of, you guessed it, Lex Luthor and Joker. Lex Joker hired Doomstroke and Terranado to destroy the Justice Titans. However, after the JTs allied with Batman and Superman, he hired 4 more mercenaries to create the Brotherhood of Injustice. Thanks to Terra, who had gone undercover with the JTs, they were able to attack the Justice Tower and come on, let's be honest. If you have the brains of Lex Luthor and the complete insanity of the Joker, you're making one heck of an opponent. When you have 2 powerful forces in comics, at some point there's like bound to be a mashup of the 2 to create a larger, even more powerful villain. And Lex Joker is probably the scariest combination we could have gotten that wasn't like Joker and Doomsday or Joker and Darkseid. Oh god, Joker Darkseid. And finally, in at number 1, the Eraser. The Eraser was the chosen alias of Lenny Fiasco, who turned to crime after living his college days under constant mocking and taunting by his classmates. Of course, it's because, you know, that's what college is like. No, that's high school, bro. Fiasco is a professional at covering the tracks of other crimes. For a 20% cut, the Eraser will erase the evidence of another crime. And honestly, I think that it's like the only job that anyone with the name Fiasco could have. The villain's power is a special helmet designed to look like a pencil eraser, because of course it is, that can wipe off evidence, even those that would be invisible to the naked eye, which is pretty damn cool when you think about it. After Batman posed as a villain to try to capture the Eraser, the villain told Bruce that he had become a criminal because Bruce had shattered his dreams of going out with Celia Smith. I'm not even gonna get into that, okay? Bruce didn't even remember her name, which made the Eraser angry. And I think that this is probably the absolute coolest concept for a supervillain, because in all honesty, if this guy wasn't an idiot, he could have ruled the world. Like, just straight up, this guy would absolutely ruin any and all investigations and then turn the tides of trials. This guy could have ended up being just like a shadow government in himself, okay? If only he wasn't just a dumbass. In at 10, Rainbow Raider. The reason that all the good guys are good is because of their morals. Because they channel their anger into something positive. Because they can control themselves. But what happens when a hero with powers like Superman is filled with a red-hot rage? Well, we saw it in Injustice. But someone able to cause those emotions, that person being Rainbow Raider, makes them pretty damn powerful. Rainbow Raider's power is derived entirely from their special goggles, okay? Which allows him to project solid beams of rainbow-colored light that he can either use offensively or as a slide for travel, and he can also coat people in certain colors of light to induce emotions, like blue for sadness, red for anger. There's also the Rainbow Raiders, a team of super color-themed villains that also have powers based on the color of the rainbow. However, just the ability to induce emotion by covering someone in light is enough to make Roy G. Bigelow pretty damn powerful. If all my rage came out and I had super speed, damn, people would have to like hide in fear, but it wouldn't matter because I would find them. And at 9, Zoom. I included a CW character on this list specifically for the guy in my DMs who told me to stop doing it. The CW version of Zoom was not exactly what everyone was expecting, although you have to admit he is one of the best and scariest villains in the Arrowverse to date. The sheer demonic look he had, especially with the suit, shook even me. However, thanks to the Velocity 9 that he was taking, Hunter Zolomon was incredibly fast, the fastest we had ever seen at that point. So fast even that in order to fight him, Barry had to take speed out of the equation. And during the final fight, Barry had to create a time remnant because he wasn't fast enough to stop Zoom with only one of him. It only got worse after Zoom kidnapped Wally and Barry had to give Zoom his speed in order to get Wally back. This only made Zoom faster. It gets even worse when in the final fight the Time Wraiths come out of the Speed Force and take Zoom, which changes him into the Black Flash, and then he gets supercharged by the Speed Force to become the living embodiment of death for all speedsters. Plus, I mean, this guy was able to create breaches at will to bring hundreds of metahumans over to Earth 1. That's pretty damn impressive. And at 8, Johnny Quick. Johnny Allen, alias Johnny Quick, is a criminal speedster from Earth 3. Together with his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica, he was a member of the crime syndicate. Johnny Allen was a high-profile criminal on the run with his equally criminal girlfriend. Cornered on the roof of Central City's Star Labs, Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning which shattered the roof. The duo fell into the lab space below, with Allen landing amid the chemicals that gave, presumably, Earth 1 Barry his speed. Something in this incident, probably the chemicals, granted him his super speed, and he went on to become a super criminal alongside his girlfriend, who had also been given powers. While his girlfriend took on the name Atomica, he took on the name Johnny Quick. The couple joined the crime syndicate at some point after this, and they ran through Central City, answering to no one, until one day the White House burned, around the time of Darkseid's incursion onto Earth Prime. The being that had destroyed Ultraman's Krypton came to Earth, and an alliance of supercriminals formed to find a way to safety. So yeah, it's basically just Barry Allen, but Earth 3. I say that's pretty overpowered. And it's 7, Weather Wizard. Meteorological madman known as the Weather Wizard was a menace to both Barry Allen and Wally West's Flash, and one of the most overpowered supercriminals they've ever faced. First appearing in 1959's The Flash number 110, criminal Mark Martin armed himself with the Weather Wand, an advanced piece of technology which could control like atoms in the universe, some form of energy, okay? Martin took the wand from his deceased brother, a scientist who never intended it to leave his lab. With some modifications, it became a deadly weapon for the criminal, and at full power, the wand could summon lightning storms, rain clouds, or change the weather entirely. Whatever the weather was, Martin could use his mighty powers to rob banks and cause mass panic. A later reimagining of the Weather Wizard would see him instead granted the metahuman ability to control the elements without using the wand. And the Weather Wizard also appeared in the CW's Flash TV show as one of the many metahumans created by the particle accelerator explosion which gave Barry Allen his powers. However, on the show there are 2 versions, one of them appearing in the first episode which Joe West killed, and the second appearing in the 16th episode of that season, with the second one being the first's older brother, the Martin brothers, Clyde being the first one, and Mark being the second and the proper Weather Wizard. As Cisco said, he's been waiting to use that name since day one. And it's 6, Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is a Flash rogue from Africa's Gorilla City. The original Grodd, which debuted in DC Comics in 1959, was a telepath who could control other animals and also had a form of mind control as well over humans. In the New 52, all inhabitants of Gorilla City had accelerated mental attributes due to the Speed Force, but Grodd was still the superior member of the species. On The Flash and the CW, Grodd was a very intelligent gorilla experimented on at Star Labs to try and create a super soldier for the US government. However, the torture and unethical treatment of the gorilla caused him to grow angry and evil, and he escaped seeking vengeance. Grodd had powerful mind control powers on top of superhuman strength and enhanced intellect, and at one point even combined with the Flash to be a psychopathic, telepathic gorilla with super speed. So I think it's safe to say that we should all be scared of Gorilla Grodd. Plus, his pop figure is pretty damn cool. Halfway through into number 5, Savitar. The fact that Barry Allen was able to just beat this whole Savitar thing from The Flash Season 3 will always escape me. I won't really ever understand how they actually ended up defeating a literal version of Barry from the future. Like, I get how they managed to do it, but it was still incredibly unrealistic, since technically Savitar would have known beforehand that the timeline was changing, since technically that should, in my brain, at least be how time travel works, but this ended up being how it works in the show, so that's fine, I guess. I don't see how it ever would have been possible to defeat a future version of the Flash without this though, but I know that he couldn't really die, since if he died, Savitar wouldn't be able to happen. A future version of the Flash is always going to be mega OP, okay? I said it. In at 4, Mirror Master. While Mirror Master never seemed like much more than a B-grade supervillain in Flash's Rogues gallery, his power has made him so much more. Before he became a Flash version, the second Mirror Master, Evan McCulloch, was an assassin in Scotland and was already a formidable foe. However, once he got his mirror gun, he became insanely powerful. The mirror gun gives Mirror Master the ability to travel to an alternate dimension by entering and exiting any reflective surface. On top of being a significant pain in the Flash's side, Mirror Master has also fought Animal Man and was someone that gave him all he could handle. The CW used the Sam Scudder version, and he was only a minor villain, and then they kinda did Eva McCulloch for season 7, but honestly, even Sam being able to travel through mirrors like that, trapping the Flash in the mirror dimension for a time, this guy is certainly underestimated. Although I hope that they find a way to explore maybe some of his abilities in later comics or even the show. I'd like to see that. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, the Shade. This Golden Age Flash foe is one of the most powerful and most terrifying, but he isn't always on the side of evil, luckily. First appearing in Flash Comics number 33 from 1942, this immortal conduit for dark energy was a formidable enemy for Jay Garrick and often caused
problems, the speedster with his weaponized shadows. Kind of like my demons, causing me all kinds of problems as well. Initially depicted as a common criminal for the Flash to stop from robbing banks and menacing Keystone City in the 40s, the Shade was eventually reimagined as something much more sinister. Originally possessing a magic cane allowing him to control darkness, the revamped 90s Shade was given a real identity of Richard Swift and an endless supply of supernatural abilities. Returning to Menace, the hero Starman, and eventually becoming his ally, the Shade used his powers of shadow manipulation, time travel, teleportation, and intangibility for both good and evil. The Shade also had his own dimension, the Shadowlands, where unwitting enemies would become trapped. And I think that having his own dimension earns him a spot in the top 3. Just saying. Penultimately, in at number 2, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash, which already sounds terrifying, but wait until you hear the story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but because, you know, of course, Robins kept dying left, right, and center. So, understandably, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. He started killing people, which honestly seems more realistic to me, aside from just like being done fighting crime totally, which can't happen, otherwise they wouldn't have a story, right? This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers, understandably because again, this time Batman's a psycho. So, Batman, using the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocks him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill modified Batmobile, I don't know how the hell he did that, and then drives them both into the Speed Force. Again, I don't know how that happened or works logically, but okay. You do you, Bat Marty, we gotta get back to the future, your kids are in danger. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce, again, somehow ended up fusing together into an evil Batman with super speed and a lust for killing. And while Barry's mind was trapped inside Bruce's body, so he could just watch. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who was part of the Dark Knights and whose goal was conquering the multiverse, and since he was a version of Batman who was psycho, he was like, hey you, come here, come with me, we're the same kind of. And finally, in number 1, Black Lantern Reverse Flash. The Black Lantern Corps is a group of various dead superheroes and villains alike who were raised by Necron and each given a Black Lantern ring. This ring grants them power over death, and these rings are powered by the Anti-Monitor, as he is present within the Black Lantern power battery. Those raised by the Black Lantern ring are in essence resurrected to where they were before death, but their mind is warped to serve Necron's purpose. Now they aren't really like fully resurrected, but that's kind of like the best analogy that we have. Those with the ring have various powers including a healing factor, aura recognition which allows them to see powerful emotions, energy spectrum assimilation which lets them extract the hearts of individuals they've slain and use their last feelings to charge the central battery and their ring by 0.01%, because you know that's a lot, it's worth it. And they, much like zombies, can infect others by biting them. A bite from a Black Lantern will slowly kill the one bitten and then turn them into a Black Lantern upon death. Yeah, basically zombies with superpowers, so definitely not something to laugh at, especially when it's the man who killed Barry Allen's mother for the fun of it.
Number 10, Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate are the alternate Justice League of Earth 3. The main difference between them and the main continuity team though is that they are evil counterparts to the world's mightiest heroes. Instead of protecting the people of their Earth, they use their power to intimidate and control them instead. Not so good. The Crime Syndicate are pretty fearsome when it comes to their individual power sets and abilities, rivaling the League's members themselves, but the team's weakness lies in their lack of teamwork, and often in their inflated egos. And friends, before we move on to the next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, if you love my black trench coat, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe and hitting that like button. Number 9, Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul if you prefer. Ra's al Ghul is traditionally thought of as a Batman villain exclusively, but he's also threatened the whole world before. And he's also threatened the whole Justice League, managing to quickly get rid of all of them using Batman's own intel, which Ra's stole. Ra's al Ghul becomes a JLA villain in the story JLA Tower of Babel. Here he uses one of Batman's strengths against him, and in so doing manages to defeat almost the entire League, except for Batman, who manages to figure out what's happening and in the end eventually put a stop to it before Ra's is able to fully execute his plan. The really crazy thing is while Ra's did hope to defeat the League, he really just wanted them out of the way so that they wouldn't stop him. So killing the League wouldn't have even been his main focus here. But imagine if it had been his main focus. The other interesting element in Tower of Babel is it also kind of implies that while being team leader, Batman is also kind of a villain to the team. And even if Raz's plan ends up being stopped and the League recovers from the temporary defeat, Raish at the very least did manage to destabilize the team by turning them against their own leader, Batman, who is forced to leave the team as a result of the fallout. So in a way, he kind of won that. Number 8, The Flash. Although it feels weird to include Wally West's Flash on this list, sorry Wally, he was for a short time a Justice League villain, or at least an antagonist, and without meaning to be, kind of an effective one too, although at the same time also being a victim himself here. This all went down in Heroes in Crisis, where Wally's own burden of knowledge of the previous continuity caused him to uncover records of trauma suffered by his fellow colleagues. Overwhelmed by emotion, Wally loses control of his powers, killing some who came to the Hero Therapy Center known as Sanctuary for counseling and treatment. Although like I said, he didn't really mean to. And later he was like, I gotta make this right. And he did make it right, so he's good. It's good now. Number 7, Lex Luthor. Many people see Lex Luthor as simply Superman's nemesis, but the truth is, his genius and ambition has also driven him to take on the whole League before as well. In fact, Lex has even been driven to make his own team to rival the League from time to time, being sometimes known as the leader of the Legion of Doom, depending on which continuity and which roster we're talking about, though it should be noted he was the leader of the original incarnation of that team that first appeared in the 70s animated series Super Friends. And even beyond that, Lex was also famous for targeting the Justice League with his Injustice Gang of the World in the 90s comics, which was actually brought together by Lex for the sole purpose of destroying the whole Justice League. So yeah, definitely makes you a Justice League villain if you're out to destroy them. Number 6, Batman Who Laughs. I think after the events of Dark Knight's death metal, we have to acknowledge the Darkest Knight, right? Hailing from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -22, the Batman Who Laughs was originally Bruce Wayne and operated as Batman before he became corrupted by the Joker. He would turn into a villainous combination of these two characters and become known as the Batman Who Laughs, an alternate version of Batman. While he would go on to rival other villains who are beyond even a multiversal level threat to our heroes, Batman Who Laughs, at his base level, without absorbing a bunch of other people's powers, is kinda actually just a guy. Although a really smart and diabolical evil genius sort of guy, and maybe a guy who, you know, had his physiology slightly altered by Joker venom. But anyways, truly it's his brilliant mind and his determination that makes him so deadly. Number 5, Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom is pretty impressive considering that they're a group often made up of some of the Justice League's most powerful and recognizable foes, both their foes as individual superheroes as well as foes who have at one time or another threatened the entire Justice League. You know, like Lex Luthor. The Legion of Doom is often seen as competition to the League, being the evil version of the team who often seek to do things their own way, a much more sinister way, usually, but sometimes also seek to rival the League's achievements, operating in the name of the greater good. However, even when they're doing that, they're still kind of, you know, against the League because they're like, we're better than you. So yeah. Number 4, Pariah. The crazy thing is Pariah originally was just a scientist who wanted to help save the multiverse, or at least warn people about its destruction, but in so doing, he kind of became driven mad by its inevitable end. Pariah is the one behind the death of the Justice League in the Death of the Justice League story arc, which happened recently, which builds up to the Dark Crisis event. He succeeded where many have failed as major Justice League antagonists. He actually managed to, you know, kill the Justice League. Perhaps this was possible for Pariah because his motivation to do so was so strong. He wasn't actually killing them out of hatred or because he felt, you know, they were in his way or they had like done him wrong, but because he felt their very existence basically threatened the existence of the multiverse. Seeing another major crisis coming that was in essence triggered by the consolidation of all continuities and universes at the end of Dark Knight's death metal, Pariah felt the only chance he'd have at stopping it would be to basically eliminate the heroes of the day, thereby stopping the progression of the coming crisis. To him it made sense. I don't know if it makes sense to you. I don't know if it makes sense to me, but to him it made sense. Number 3, Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most powerful characters in the entire DC universe, hands down. Especially because although he might not appear to be on the same threat level as some of the others on our list, he's a villain that pretty much has to exist. In other words, you can never fully defeat Darkseid. Darkseid is, meaning that he will keep coming back even after he's defeated. This is because Darkseid is basically like a universal constant in the DC universe. Aside from that, Darkseid is a master strategist and is also known for being an immensely powerful warrior himself and being. He is insanely strong, nigh invulnerable, and comes equipped with Omega beams, which are said to never miss their target. The beams can either disintegrate Darkseid's opponent completely, or can be used as a life trap when Darkseid chooses instead to employ the Omega Sanction. The Omega Sanction actually traps targets in a series of synthetic lives, which was what happened to Batman instead when he was believed to have been killed by Darkseid. While some individuals can straight up resist the Omega effect, the Omega beams are also said to be powerful enough to destroy entire planets, which seems like a contradiction, but hey, maybe the people that can avoid the Omega effect are also themselves powerful enough to destroy planets. Would that make sense? I don't know. Number 2, Anti-Monitor. Speaking of beings who have the ability to destroy entire worlds, Anti-Monitor one-ups this by possessing the ability to destroy entire universes. He is the villain we know from the famous Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. This event completely changed the history of the DC universe, after the Anti-Monitor attacked and successfully destroyed many worlds, causing the continuity to in essence be reset and reorganized as a result of the fight against him. Also, I feel like you know you're a powerful villain if you can like change up like the whole world like that. That's pretty crazy. Number 1, Perpetua. Perpetua is actually probably one of the most powerful villains that the Justice League has ever come up against to date, and probably one of the most powerful villains just ever. Period. End of statement. She is the mother of the Anti-Monitor, Monitor or Over-Monitor, and the World Forger. Perpetua is actually believed to be one of the most fearsome beings in all of the Omniverse. Never mind the universe or even the multiverse, the Omniverse. The Omniverse holds within it all the known multiverses in existence for those that believe in that. That being the multiverses that are not just DC, but like DC, Marvel, like any multiverse you can imagine that exists, including our own. Which means, yeah, Perpetua is basically on a whole other level. While she was defeated in Dark Knight's death metal, Perpetua is still seen as being a foe possessing nigh omnipotence, with her even being implied as the creator of the universe, having likely been the hand of creation involved in sparking the Big Bang. She was tricked by the Batman who laughs and manipulated by him into giving up kinda like all of her crisis energy power, thereby in the end being defeated, but still, at base levels, she would be considered one of the most powerful beings in the known Omniverse. Even though now, you know, she got put in the Source Wall and it got destroyed, but still, I still think we need to tip our hats. Sure, she'll be back at some point.